The lobby of the Lumina Grand Hotel in downtown Chicago was a cathedral of modern luxury. Sunlight streamed through two-story glass walls, catching the light of a crystalline chandelier and glinting off the polished marble floors. It was a space designed to inspire awe, to communicate a silent promise of unparalleled comfort and service. But at 2:14 p.m. on a crisp autumn afternoon, it became a theater for a very different kind of performance. Dr. Evelyn Reed walked through the revolving glass doors, her presence a quiet counterpoint to the lobby's grandeur. She wore no designer labels, no ostentatious jewelry. Her attire, simple charcoal gray turtleneck, dark-fitted jeans, and worn leather boots spoke of travel and purpose, not of status. Her calm, observant eyes, which had overseen the design and construction of this very building, scanned the space. Her sneakers, designed for comfort over style, made no sound on the vast marble expanse. Yet her approach to the front desk sent an invisible ripple through the air. Behind the sweeping curve of the check-in desk stood Julian Croft, the hotel manager, a man of 40-something with a meticulously tailored suit and a smile that never quite reached his eyes. He stood with his arms crossed, a sentry guarding a fortress. He was flanked by two clerks, Brenda Slater, whose severe ponytail seemed to pull her expression into a permanent state of disapproval, and Marco Diaz, a young man whose ambition was overshadowed by his eagerness to please his superiors. None of them offered a greeting. They simply watched Evelyn approach, their collective gaze a silent, preemptive judgment. She was a problem to be solved, not a guest to be welcomed. "I have a reservation," Evelyn said, her voice even and clear. "The Celestial Suite, the name is Reed." Julian's eyes narrowed, a flicker of disbelief crossing his face. "The Celestial Suite, madame, that's our premier accommodation. Are you certain you're at the right hotel?" The question was laced with condescension, a polite but firm challenge to her reality. Evelyn didn't rise to the bait. Instead, she slid her driver's license and a sleek, unadorned black credit card across the cool marble. Julian picked them up with two fingers as if they were contaminated, holding the card by its very edge. He squinted at the name. "Dr. Evelyn Reed," he muttered, the title sounding like an absurdity on his lips. "This seems irregular." Brenda, without taking her eyes off Evelyn, pressed a button on the console. Her voice, amplified and sterile, echoed through the lobby's sound system. "Security, be advised. We have a potential unauthorized individual attempting to access a penthouse suite. Possible fraudulent identification." Evelyn's expression remained a mask of tranquility, but inside a familiar ache settled in her bones. It was the echo of a memory from 20 years prior, a 16-year-old girl, dressed in her best clothes, being escorted out of a hotel lobby in Charlotte because she was waiting for her parents and was told she was loitering. The shame of that moment hadn't broken her. It had forged her. It was the fuel that led her to sketch the initial designs for the Lumina chain on a stained diner napkin, vowing to build spaces where dignity was the standard, not a privilege. "I'm not looking for trouble," Evelyn stated, her voice a low, steady anchor in the rising tide of hostility. "I'm here for my room." Marco scoffed, a smirk playing on his lips. "We see this all the time. People find a high-limit card, make up a name, and hope we're too busy to check." Across the lobby, a travel vlogger named Leo Maxwell, known for his unsparingly honest review series, Honest Hospitality, lowered his phone. He had been framing a shot of the chandelier, but now he had a far more interesting subject. He whispered to his companion, then turned his camera back on, this time aimed at the front desk. "We are live at the Lumina Grand in Chicago," he narrated, quietly into his lavalier mic and witnessing a masterclass in how not to treat a guest. "This is going to be interesting." Isabel Flores, a young concierge working at a side desk, looked up. Her eyes, full of a deep, intuitive intelligence, met Evelyn's. A silent, instantaneous understanding passed between them, a flash of recognition, of concern, of shared experience. Isabel took a half step forward, ready to intervene, but a sharp, dismissive glare from Julian froze her in place. Evelyn calmly took out her phone and sent a single coded text. 3 blocks away, in a sleek corporate office, her executive assistant, Chloe, saw the message and replied instantly. The system is armed and ready. Julian, still holding the card, gestured with it dismissively. We have a protocol for this kind of situation, he announced, his voice rising to perform for the growing audience of curious guests. We are required to verify the card with the issuing bank, which can take some time. In the meantime, he turned to Marco. Confiscate it. Marco's eyes lit up. He reached under the counter and produced a pair of heavy-duty scissors, the kind used for cutting open boxes. With a theatrical flourish, he held up Evelyn's black card. This appears to be fraudulent material, he declared, and with a sharp, definitive snick, he cut the card in half. He dropped the 2 pieces into a clear plastic baggie, which he then sealed. Company policy, he said with a triumphant grin. A collective gasp rippled through the lobby. Hello? Maxwell's camera zoomed in on the 2 pieces of plastic in the bag. He just cut her card in half. Leo narrated, his voice tight with disbelief. I've reviewed over 300 hotels. I have never, ever seen this. This isn't policy. This is an assault. Evelyn didn't flinch. Her voice, though still quiet, seemed to drop a degree in temperature. You will regret that decision for the rest of your professional life. Emboldened by Julian's approval, Brenda stepped out from behind the desk. She straightened her blazer, her posture radiating authority. You've been warned. It's time for you to leave. She reached out and grabbed Evelyn's arm. The moment her fingers made contact, the atmosphere in the lobby shattered. Leo's stream, which had just crossed 1,000 viewers, exploded with comments of shock and outrage. But it was Isabel Flores who broke the spell. Do not put your hands on a guest, she cried out, her voice ringing with a conviction that defied her junior role. Her reservation is valid. I saw it myself this morning. Brenda spun on her, eyes flashing. You stay out of this, Isabel, if you know what's good for you. Then my job isn't good for me, Isabel retorted, stepping forward to stand beside Evelyn, creating a small but defiant united front. She looked Julian dead in the eye. I won't be silent for you. Not this time. That was when Julian abandoned all pretense of professionalism. His voice dropped to a venomous hiss, meant for those nearby but sharp enough to cut through the air. She's a scammer. People like her always think they can play the system, that the rules don't apply. An older man in a navy suit, who had been watching from a lounge chair, leaned toward Leo's camera. Are you getting this? He said. People like her. Leo nodded grimly. All of it. In the center of the storm, Evelyn brought her phone to her ear again. Chloe, she said, her voice a calm instrument of command. Escalate. Initiate. Internal audit documentation. I want a time-stamped log of every word from this point forward. On the other end, Chloe's voice was crisp. Asterisk time-stamped and recorded. Do you want Amelia on standby? Give me 1 more minute, Evelyn replied. She then looked directly at Marco, who was still preening over his handiwork with the scissors. Return my property now. He leaned over the counter, smirking. Or what? Or you will be permanently locked out of the Lumina hospitality system. No employment, no references, no appeal. Brenda snorted. You don't have that kind of authority. Oh. But she does, Isabel interjected softly, her eyes never leaving Evelyn's face. A seed of doubt was finally planted in Julian's mind for the first time. He saw something in Evelyn's unyielding calm that terrified him. It wasn't the look of a woman begging for entry. It was the look of a judge about to pass sentence. Desperate to regain control, Julian made his final, fatal error. Throw her out. He barked at Brenda. I'll call the police myself. She is trespassing. Please do, Evelyn said with a serene, unnerving smile. As Brenda moved forward again, the guests themselves began to shift. It was subtle. At first, then deliberate. The man in the navy suit stood up and positioned himself in Brenda's path. An elderly woman rolled her carry-on suitcase between Evelyn and the desk. Within seconds, a loose, protective semicircle had formed around Evelyn and Isabel. They didn't know who she was, but they knew what they were seeing was wrong. Lobby, once a space of intimidation, had become a sanctuary. Julian stood behind his desk, suddenly small and powerless, watching as his authority dissolved before his eyes. Evelyn took a single step forward, the crowd partying for her. She looked at Julian Croft, at the desk he lorded over, at the lobby she had dreamed into existence. Her voice didn't need to be loud. It was weighted with the absolute truth. "This lobby," she said, "belongs to me." A stunned silence fell. Marco's smirk vanished. Brenda's face went white. Julian blinked, the reality of his mistake crashing down on him with the force of a physical blow. Evelyn raised her phone. "Chloe, patch Amelia through. Now." A moment later, a new voice, sharp, clear, and utterly authoritative, filled the air from Evelyn's phone speaker. "Dr. Reed, I'm here. We are standing by for your authorization." Evelyn's gaze was locked on Julian. "Amelia, on my authority as founder and chief architect of the Lumina Hospitality Group, terminate the employment of Julian Croft, Brenda Slater, and Marco Diaz. Effective immediately. Revoke all system access, freeze their credentials, and log today's incident for a full legal and ethical review." A beat of profound silence. Then Amelia's voice returned. "Processing. It's done." In that instant, the small LED light on Julian's access badge, clipped to his suit pocket, buzzed and turned from green to solid red. Brenda's did the same. Marco stared at his own badge as it, too, blinked into the crimson light of exile. They were locked out, not with a shout, but with a click. In the silent, humming efficiency of the system she had built, justice had been delivered. In front of every guest, every camera, and every employee. The woman they had tried to erase had just dismantled their world in under 10 minutes. The last remnants of Julian Croft's composure disintegrated. He stared at his useless access badge, his face a mask of disbelief. This is not possible," he stammered, turning to Brenda, whose hands were trembling as she stared at her phone. The corporate network now an impenetrable wall. "I'm locked out," she whispered, her voice cracking. "Everything. It's gone." Spell Flores, no longer the timid concierge, stepped fully behind the front desk, occupying the space with a newfound authority. "They have been removed from the system," she announced to the lobby. "They no longer speak for the Lumina Grand. You can't do this." Julian erupted, his voice shrill. "This is a violation. We have rights." "Leadership," Evelyn said, her voice cutting through his panic. "It's not about hiding behind policies to justify your prejudice, Julian. It's about what happens when people who have been ignored finally find their voice." As if on cue, a woman stepped forward from the crowd of guests. "I filed a complaint last year about a room not being ADA compliant," she said, her voice strong. "You were the manager who signed the letter dismissing it as a misunderstanding." Another guest, the man in the navy suit, added, "I was double charged, and your office ignored my calls for a week." One by one, the whispers of past grievances became a chorus, a public testimony to a pattern of neglect and disrespect. History was no longer hidden in a file. It was being read aloud in his own lobby. Brenda, cornered and terrified, finally broke. "It was Julian," she cried, pointing a trembling finger at her former boss. "He trained us to do it. He called it brand protection. He told us to profile guests who didn't fit the high-end image. I thought it was normal." "Yeah." "Is a lie." Julian snarled, but the denial was hollow. "No," Evelyn said, her expression unreadable. "It's a confession, and it has been documented." Amelia's voice returned over the speaker, cool and precise. "We have logged the admission. This will be escalated to the compliance and legal teams." Julian finally turned to Evelyn. His shoulders slumped in defeat, a desperate question in his eyes. Why? Why didn't you just say who you were? You set us up. No, Evelyn replied, her voice softening with a steely sadness. I gave you every chance to treat me with basic human dignity. I walked in here today as a guest. That should have been enough. That was the only test. She turned to the lobby, to the guests who had become her impromptu protectors. My name is Dr. Evelyn Reed. I am the founder of this hotel group. And as of this moment, I am reclaiming this hotel not just from 3 employees, but from the culture of exclusion they were allowed to foster. A wave of applause, genuine and heartfelt, swept through the room. Evelyn looked at Isabel, whose eyes were wide with a mix of shock and validation. Isabel Flores, you acted with integrity when it was easier to be silent. Effective immediately. I am promoting you to general manager of this hotel. Isabel could only nod, tears welling in her eyes as the guests applauded her. Evelyn then addressed the 3 disgraced employees one last time. You are dismissed. Security will not be needed. I want you to walk through this lobby and out those doors. I want every guest here to see the consequences of behavior that will never again be tolerated within these walls. As Julian, Brenda, and Marco made their walk of shame through the silent watching crowd, a new era for the Lumina Grand began. The air, once thick with judgment, felt clean and light. This wasn't just about firing. It was about renewal. Evelyn Carter had just taken her hotel back, one righteous decision at a time. 3 months later, the Lumina Grand was transformed. Near the front desk, a simple, elegant plaque was mounted on the wall. It read, Asterisk, this space is built on a foundation of dignity. Welcome is not conditional here. Asterisk under the leadership of General Manager Isabel Flores. The hotel became a model for the entire Lumina chain. The company launched a sweeping nationwide initiative, the Dignity Mandate. An independent guest dignity council, funded by the corporation but run externally, was created to review complaints and hold management accountable. Leo Maxwell, the vlogger, sat on its advisory board. The scandal, which became known as the Lumina Reckoning, prompted a wave of confessions from other employees across the country, exposing that Julian's behavior wasn't an anomaly, but part of an unwritten systemic directive from a previous generation of leadership. The rot ran deep, and Evelyn was determined to dig it all out. At the company's first annual leadership summit since the incident, Evelyn stood at the podium. She was no longer an anonymous figure, but a celebrated reformer. True hospitality, she told the room of managers, staff, and guests, doesn't begin with the smile you are trained to give. It begins with the respect you assume every single person deserves, long before they ever speak a word. We are not in the business of selling rooms. We are in the business of human dignity. The audience rose to their feet, their applause echoing, not just for a CEO, but for the woman who was once pushed toward the exit and had turned around to hold the door open for everyone else.